Hi, my name is Travis Ramadania, and I'm here um, to talk to you about Qleaner. So, if you work on React projects, there are files in your code base right now that nobody uses, but you're too scared to delete them. This tool shows you exactly what they are. Every React project eventually becomes messy. Old components, abandoned features, unused images, dead routes, and nobody knows what's safe to remove. Bundlers and tree shaking clean the final bundle, but your repository stays full of junk forever. So, in front of you is a project called Student Workflow Organizer. It's a main project that comes from GitHub. It's a free open source one. And I want to use this project to demonstrate to you how Qleaner works. And I just want to build that confidence in you. So, the first thing you need to do is install it globally. So, Qleaner um, on my project it's installed. So how do I know that? If I type Qleaner, type enter, I can see there are all these warning signs, but we can see it's coming through. So how do you install it? By default npm install global, then type Qleaner. Once that is done, you'll have the latest version of Qleaner. And if you have an older version, just do an npm update global Qleaner, and that's it, done. Once you're good to go, the next thing to do is we need to now make sure that Qleaner is configured within the project. So right now I'm just going to type Qleaner init. Once that is done, you can see that Qleaner config file has been created successfully, and the only evidence for that is by seeing qleaner.config.json file, which is on my left side. And if you open it, it ends up creating a few things. So I'm going to take you just take you through some of the things. So the first thing we can see, it has exclude directory, exclude file, exclude extensions, exclude file print, exclude directory assets, exclude file assets, exclude directory code, and exclude file code. We also have is root folder reference and alias. So I'll just take you the first few ones. So exclude directory mostly handles the code aspect of it. So you're building code, you've been writing code, there's a lot of code involved. You do installs depending on the package. If you're using Node.js, then there are files that definitely don't need to scan because they're not yours. One of them is Node modules. We have the dist, we have the build folders. Those are by default excluded. You can add as much and as many as you want from here. We have exclude files. These are files that you don't need them to be scanned by the cleanup. Number one of the things that we need to be alert on is that any auto-generated code does not go well with Qleaner. So I don't recommend scanning generated code like one thing example is Prisma does the auto generation of code based on the database etc. So that as much as it's built in, has its own folder, it's best you exclude that from scan because it's not your code. So you can have that, and then we have exclude extensions, files that start with that end with the test.tsx, .ts, .js. Those ones can be excluded from your file. Exclude file print. So this section right here is where you want code to be scanned but should not be included as code that is not used. One thing that we know for a fact is that in React projects, page.tsx and sometimes index.js, index.tsx, those are special files that we know for a fact that they are used within the code project to signify specific pages for that project, for those independent pages. For that reason, we will want them to be included as code that is not being used, even though no one imports that file. There's nothing within your code base will import that. So this is where you do that. By default, if you're using Next.js, page.tsx will be scanned, route.tsx will be scanned, which exists within the API folder, but it will not be included within the as a file that is not being used. So that's just something to tell the cleaner. So for something like React, so people who build with React specifically, if you're building with that, then you know for a fact that the convention in which how we lay out things is kind of freestyle. So we don't have page.tsx, we don't have page.js. What we have, you could name anything, and for that, any page can be any. So for that, it's best you list all the pages that you think that you know that for a fact that they are not used. Yeah, but for a fact, also another thing I do know is that as long as they are imported by app.js, you're good to go. You're very fine. So exclude from here onwards, going downwards. I think up to here is where I just dealing with images. So these are configurations for images where you want image the cleaner not to scan images within specific folders. It's up to you why. Same to files, exclude directories, code. So directory code and directory assets, they're two different. One, directory assets mostly exclude specific folders that deal with this image. Exclude directory code, exclude for those are code that you don't want them to be scanned for missing images or for finding images that are being used. So that's one. So we put that by default. Node modules, this folder, build. That's up to you. So we have exclude file code. Exclude file code. It's also you probably don't want specific files to be scanned. Could be page.tsx, could be page.ts, whatever it is, you can add that there. Two things here. By default, we have alias and is root folder referenced. Alias by default in the Next.js framework, all images, all assets are put within the public folder, unless you want to put them somewhere else. But by default, we expect them to be put within the public folder. So how you reference those images? Usually do a slash and then the name of the image, or depending on the hierarchy on the file structure, you can do slash folder slash and then that image. So for that reason, if you're using the public folder, one aspect where we know for a fact that Next.js uses aliases by default. If you just decide my image is within the public folder, it will add the public and do that on your behalf. So for that, you have alias defined as true. But for projects that you know for a fact that you are using specific, you didn't put it in an alias folder, you probably put it in another folder where things are just let's say in an asset folder, all right, just next to something somewhere, but they have to be rooted in one place, all right. So for this Qleaner to work, you need um, things to be organized in a way. So have all assets in one folder, all right. So for that, but then how you reference them is a bit different. So what do I mean by that? If you reference your images using let me see an example right here. If you go to login page, scroll, okay, this one is a bit different. But if for example you were referencing images using something like dot dot slash dot dot slash, something like that, and then say image or say asset. So if this is how you reference things, this is how you're referencing things, then by default, if we go back to where is this, if we go back to, I'm looking for the file, which is this one. If you go back to is root if is root folder referenced, you can set it to true and then alias set it to false. So once that is set, you're good. All right. So those are the few things that I needed you to know. So for this demo, I want just to take you straight to it, and we're gonna do an example of a project that, like I say, it's called Student Workflow Organizer, and we can see this developer built this project. Both has the front and back end in one repository, so which is okay. Our focus is mostly on the front end application. we go inside the front end application, check the source folder. We can see there's a source folder, we can see there's a public folder. So I'm just going to take you through how I'm thinking, right? So number one, just looking at this layout of the structure, looking at the source folder, checking out the app folder, components, library, the middleware. So in the by default, this guy is using Next.js. I believe so. Let me see. Scrolling down. Yeah, he's using Next.js, and we know for a fact, I know for a fact that middleware is part of the configuration of the Next.js. No one imports it, but through the framework itself, it handles a lot, right? And no one is supposed to import it. Just it's imported within the architecture itself. So for that reason, I will say add middleware as add middleware.ts as a file to be scanned, but don't include it as a missing file, right? Or a rotten file or a dead file, all right? No one imports it, so that's one thing. All right. So the next thing we see inside the source folder, we see the app folder, and then looking at the structure, everything is within the page.tsx. So we're just looking at patterns, right? So the patterns is page.tsx, which is the common ones, and then he doesn't have API route. I don't see API route, but I can see their components right here. So components, we have the nav bar, which everything here within the nav bar can be scanned. We can check for the lib folder. Lib folder has just the utils, which is cool. That's nice. I think that's amazing. I think that's right. So what else can we check? All right, let's see. So looking at the config, does he have tests? Because we don't want anyone to test files. So looking at the tests, he doesn't have any tests. We can check. So why am I doing this? Just do one setup for a project. Like build a project, make up build, like you have a project, looking at it, set it up the configurations once and for all, and then always do your scan once, right? So once that is done, we've checked the global, the favicon. What I like about this project has the public folder, which has some few images we can test on, which is nice. So we can do both the image section and the folder section and the code section. So let's start with the first scan. So I'm going to do a clear scan right here, and then I'm going to do Qleaner. So I'm going to do a Qleaner, and I'm going to do scan, and I'm going to say scan specifically. If you look, we have the root folder, scan the front end app. Within the front end app, our code lies within the source folder, and then inside the source folder, I think everything within the source folder is okay. So let's scan everything within the source folder. But we do notice everything within the source folder. Our project usually tracks on post.css config, the tailwind config. It tracks on ts config. So we probably don't want the following to be added onto the list of things that we need. We don't want them to be checked on, right? All right, so we can definitely just add them. All right, so I'm just going to do add global.css. It's probably used, and then so let's just do next js.config. Sorry for that. Put a comma there. Do some. I'm just looking for .ts or .js. All that, only that. So tailwind also in the mix. So tailwind config. Types probably being used by someone, so we will leave that open. All right. So ts config. Ts config dot, is it dot no, that is .json, so that's okay. I think the checking MUI, material UI, probably not. We could check that, maybe we'll scan that. All right, so by default this is what we've added, so I'm just going to do that. So Qleaner scan, Then here are the options. Number one, probably don't know the options, but here are some things you can check on. All right. So if you don't know off the bat what to do, so you can always do Qleaner scan, and we have the exclude file. So all this can be added within the config files. It's not a must you like do it yourself. But what I can do for you right now is show you how to do the scan, do the source folder, then add the direct. I can add minus D. Minus D means a dry run. Let's do we're adding a dry run option, and then we're going to say minus C, which is dash C, which says clear the cache. Let's do a fresh start. All right. So every time you probably don't know what to do, probably not sure about the cache, the current scan. Always do a minus C, and then I can say an option of T for table, and then we just do the scan. All right. So enter, and automatically it found one file, loading.tsx. So what do I recommend? I recommend, if it has listed for you the file, check it out, look at it, see if this file truly doesn't mean is it really used, right? So I could just say loading, as I manually do it. So I'm looking for a file that automatically automatically imports it, and I don't see any. So from there, this is one thing, and then you can do you can do also an image scan. So image scan is mostly, we can do remove that. So image scan requires two things. Number one, change from scan to image, change from add front end, add the source folder. Actually, let's just look at the folder structure. Within the source folder, it's actually outside. So outside the source folder, add the public folder, do a front end. So what are the options? So the first thing is add the image path. So all images have to be contained in one section, right? And then the second thing is the second option is where is all the code, right, that will be utilizing all these images, right? So for this one, it'll be here. Remember the important information about aliases, and if you're using references. If you're using aliases, then all that has been configured for you. So just run this, all right? But if you are not sure about aliases and you're not sure about references, you can always try both. But always do a clear cache, which is by doing a minus C, adding the minus option, minus C. I may do that, I just call it that way. But adding a dash C says clear everything, and let's do a clean start. All right. The only caveat about this is that once you clear the cache, you also clear the other one. You also clear all the caches for both scans, both the image scan and the other one. So if you do one scan, you clear the cache, it clears both. So if you clear here, there's no need to do a clear on the other end. So since we did that clear on the other end to also clear the image caches, so we can just not clear anything here from here. So we just do the dry run and then do a table and then do an enter, right? So let's type enter, see what happens. So by default, this project says that we have next.svg and we have vasel.svg. These are the two files that are not being used. All right, so let's type it out. Let's just confirm .svg. Yeah, so next.svg is nowhere to be seen. Vasel.svg, same here. So that is one thing. Okay, so at least this is nice. This is very good. This is insightful. All right. If it was a big project, we could have found probably a lot of images if you're dealing with, if you're a developer's been building with images. But if you're a developer who's not building with so much code, you could find a lot of boilerplate code that probably is dead rot files that are not useful for you, right? So by that, let me show you now. Let's say if we weren't doing a dry run. So dry run, the most important thing about the dry run is we just want to do the scan. We don't want to delete anything. We just want to see, is there any code that exists that it's not really useful. So if we were to remove the dry run and do an enter, it will prompt you. Just add a prompt. So like, hey, we have found 3 files. What do you want to do? Do you want to delete them? Do you want to put them in the trash? What do you want to do with them? And this is definitely after you've confirmed everything. You've confirmed that these files are no longer useful to you. You don't need them. So you can pick them. So you can pick each one of them, right? Either 1 or 2. So we can find, oh, and then another thing is the ones listed in red are files that don't exist. What do I mean by that? They are placeholder dead links, right? So they don't those images don't exist, but a developer had probably added it as a link, thinking probably it was there, etc., but it wasn't. So it can also do that. Can also identify dead links for you. So that's one cool thing. Yes, we've highlighted it, but in actual sense, it won't be removed from the code because it doesn't exist. So I'm going to click enter. I'm going to be asked, do you want to delete them or do you want to move them to trash? If you want to move them to trash, meaning you want to see if I move this code to trash, does this mean do these files, specific files that I've moved to trash, do they break my code? So that's the main focus of why we're moving to trash. And trash is usually within your code base. So I'm just going to press enter, and it created a file structure, a folder where all those images, the 2 ones that truly did exist, are added within that folder. The rest are not added. So once that is done, let's say you can always do a clean scan, and let's see what happens. Clean, yep. So if you do a clean scan, automatically clears the cache, checks, invalidates, etc. Finds probably 1 dead reference, which is okay. So right now, let's say we want to check for summary. Right? Let's summarize. Qleaner, and then we just say summary. Tell me how big is my code? How big is my project? So you realize I have like 12 files, right? And remember, always do a summary after you've done like the entire scan. So you've done the image scan, you've done the code scan. If you don't have images, okay, you can always do the code scan, which is still fine, and still give you the code, the summary of the statistics, which is really important because you don't want to push code that is not really helpful. So I'm gonna do a Qleaner. I'm gonna do a summary again, and then I'm gonna add L. So L is for check for me. Do I have large code? And it will help you find. Just do a summary. My nav bar has like 10 kbs of worth of code. Large images. I've logo.jpg. That's the largest images I have. That's the largest image I have, which is around 30 kb. Not that bad. So we're doing a good job, right? So far. So let's say if we want to go in depth and we want to check, let's say we want to check for refactoring, right? What do we mean by that? Sometimes we write a lot of code and there are so many highly coupled, intertwined code, right? And those could be alarming. So we could use this to identify high risk code, high risk files, so that if in case we want to refactor them, we could check here and just go straight to that and clean them up. All right, so 10 files with heavy dependencies. I think heavy dependencies are the files that do import a lot. So in this project, it's quite moderate imports, 2 inbuilt projects, or 2 inbuilt components. So if you want to check, you can always check, and you can see it installs it installs other dependencies, but what we mean by the 2 is anything that we've built our own. including the global. So things that are coming from node modules are not really tracked because it's not ours. We can't control that, right? So that is enough. And then let's scroll down, see other things we can find out. Like dependencies, these are probably that import little. So very helpful if you want to know, um, is this is this component really of value, right? All right. And then we have top 10 file hotspots. So these are files that are imported by almost everyone. Uh, So the highest is the nav, which is imported once, the utils, etc. And then we have dead image hotspots, dead image hotspots, dead links, right? So that is enough for now. Thank you.